I've come to believe that there are only two things that'll cause a man to want to change. One is pain, and the other is what I call divine discontent. So, men, I want you to think back before you began your inner journey. What was the trigger that caused you to begin that process? Because again, I know there are men that are watching this and they're going to be, what in the hell are these guys talking about? I'm disconnected. But then when we share from that space of pain or divine discontent, I think there can be a connection there. So men, what was it that triggered you to begin your inner journey? And I'll start. At the age of 23, I was living the American dream. I had the house, the wife, the 2.5 kids, and by society standards, I was pretty successful. Within about a 6.5 year time frame, that American dream turned into the American nightmare as I went through a divorce, bankruptcy, foreclosure, a deep, deep state of depression. I was even homeless for 2 years living out of my car. And as I started rebuilding my life, this question just came up that I decided that I wanted to answer. And that question was this: what does it mean to be a man? Because I had done everything I thought a man was supposed to do to be happy, and yet I was absolutely miserable. And so my divorce was my wake-up call. It was that event that triggered me to begin my journey of transformation, that inner journey of transformation that I'm still on today, some 30 years later. And so that's how I began my process, because I was in so much pain. Something had to shift. As a matter of fact, I got to a point where it was either get help or die. There was no in between. Fortunately for me, I didn't drink or do drugs or alcohol. I would have been dead a long time ago. I'm absolutely certain of that. But it was that pain, that suppressed, repressed pain that I had been carrying for years, that caused me to begin my journey. Ramoku, how did you start your journey?
When I was first exposed to men's work, I was living as a resident in a very traditional Soto Zen Buddhist temple here in New Orleans. And there was a man by the name of Harry Lowenberg who persisted over the course of 2 years to have me come to an NWTA. And prior to that, I had been doing inner work on my own around my own sexuality and trying to figure out my attraction to other masculine beings. And I had joined a fraternity years prior, Phi Beta Sigma. And there was still something missing from those experiences, in that my fraternity experience was wonderful and it was also normative. And I wasn't connecting with men in a deep, vulnerable way, the way that I desired. And I think my Zen work, even though Zen isn't personal development work, it was still a wonderful initiation to look deeper into myself, but in a more day-to-day sense. Zen took me into a cosmic sense that eradicated the boundaries between person and other. Personal development work takes me right into the, how should I put it? A very human experience, a dualistic experience. So because of my Zen work, the stage was set to be more receptive to personal development work and the NWTA. And it was a shift of a lifetime, let me tell you. There was also some unresolved trauma, you could say, from my childhood and trying to figure out what this anger had to do with. And so I decided to give it a shot and jump into personal development work. And I never looked back since.
Wow. Beautiful. Zen. I love Buddhism, by the way.
Me too, as you can see.
Thank you for sharing. Jermaine.
Yeah, thank you for that, bro. I didn't know that about you, man. I'm glad you just shared that. Thank you for that. So Michael, first, let me just say thank you for how you set that up. Because I didn't realize until this very moment what it was that brought me to men's work. I always thought it was, I would describe it as a discontent or a not feeling connected to anything, but I really couldn't put a real title to it until you just said spiritual discontent, right? Something in my spirit wasn't right. And so my story began, you know, it's similar to yours, bro. I did it all. You know, I had two houses, you know, cars, everything you can imagine was mine for the taking. My business is doing, at the time, was doing really well, is still doing really well. And what I'm identifying now in this moment as the spiritual discontent is how I found the Mankind Project was I was just searching online for different men's organizations. I just wanted to connect with a men's group. And at the time, I didn't know what that was. I knew it wasn't church or, you know, something traditional in that way. So I started just looking up. I thought maybe it was the Freemasons. You know, I heard a lot about that. Maybe is that what I'm looking for? Where I can kind of learn a little bit and then, you know, network and be in camaraderie and partnership with other men and stuff like that. And then something popped up with this New Warrior training adventure. And this is why how you set it up was so important, because the spiritual discontentment came from that I had read the book Iron John about 3 times, right? And so I was really fixated on the author and poet Robert Bly. And it was something that he would say in the book that just stuck with me, which was men come into enlightenment through trauma. And it used to sit on me really hard, but I didn't understand why it was sitting on me. It was I was discontent, is exactly what it was. And so I signed up for this weekend, not knowing what it was. I just figured for once in my life, I'm going to take a chance and do something that I'm not in control of, because everything else in my life, I had the finger on the pulse, bro. Nobody moved until I say move. Nothing happened until I said it could happen. And this was the first time in a very long time that I was kind of letting go. Let me see what you do when you guide, you know? And I took a chance and I went. And to this day, bro, I refer to my journey as pre-initiation. You know, who was Jermaine pre-initiation and who was he after? Because the difference is really like night and day. Really. What I found on that weekend about me completely changed everything I understood about myself, about my role in the world, and about my role to me personally. It changed it all. So so my origin story begins in a discontentment, and now I feel that I don't have that spiritual discontentment. I got brothers all around the world now, and depending on how I feel that day, I reach out to whatever feels good at that point, you know. And I know that I could sit in authenticity. I can make agreements that are actually held. I can be in integrity with my own mission, right? And lastly, I create a safe and loving world by healing myself first and sharing my gifts with others, bro.
Mm.
And I'm actually living that mission right now. Thank you, bro.
Appreciate you. Appreciate you. I feel that deeply, 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 deeply. Paul.
Damn. Yeah. I'm like, man, I was hoping I went before Jermaine, man. So man, I appreciate this question. I appreciate this so much. And I'm gonna bring my mission into this at the end. So for me, The moment of spiritual discontent was, I remember it was a weekend after Fourth of July weekend. I was at a friend of mine, Carrie's wedding, and I was there alone. My wife was at home with my kid. And I remember I got so banged up drunk. I was the opposite of you, Michael. I drink and drugs. It was like my freaking go-to. And I remember I was at this wedding. I was just like feeling so alone. And the more alone I felt, the more I drank. I had about 5 pitchers of sangria that night. And I got behind the wheel like I would usually do after being drunk. Two things happened that I was scared of most. I remember I stopped off at Wendy's. That wasn't one of the scary things, but I stopped off at Wendy's to get food to try to sober up. And on my way home, I crashed my car. And I hit a pole. I barely missed it. And I was like, stuff, man. I was like, okay, damn. I got out, the car was still able to drive. I was like, man, that was a close one. About 4 blocks, I turned, I was close to home. I'm a block away from home and I get pulled over by the cops. And I was like, I'm going to jail, which was one of my other fears. My first fear was like, I'm going to kill myself behind the wheel. Second fear is I'm going to go to jail. And as a black man, I'm never going to see the light of day. And I was in the car. I was like, I'm done. I was like, well, this is where else. I was like, hey, I've done everything, right? I made the money. I got married. I literally got a house in the corner with the fence. I got a kid. This is what I was supposed to do. I'm freaking miserable. And I remember the cop let me go. And I remember I was like, yo, I went home, I rolled a joint, and I sat in my yard all night talking to a tree, AKA spirit. And I remember the voice was like, okay, so we showed you what can happen. You want to keep going on this path, or you want to make some hard decisions right now, because you're going to die. You're going to end soon. So what do you want to do? And I remember I was there. There was a lot of crying that night, snot bubbles, like coming to realizations. And like, it was rough, man. And I remember I sat, and as the sun came up, it dawned on me it was time for a change. And it scared me because I didn't know what the hell that looked like. And that was the day I decided to step away from my marriage and my kid. And it was something as a man I told myself I'd never do, because my parents were divorced. I said, I'd never do that to my kid. And I felt like a failure for years, man. And the drinking got harsher. I used sex as a way to numb myself, which resulted in 2 different kids with 2 different women. So I had 3 with 3 different women. And I was in pain, man. And I didn't know, because I thought that that's just how you deal with it. And from that part, I think I want to make sure I tell this tale that was a lot of rocky things, a lot of stubbornness, resistance to even going to a weekend or getting help. Like, I'm fine. Just get me a damn martini and shut the hell up, or roll a joint or whatever. I just was running, and I stopped running. And this work continues to be done. And it's like I'm realizing I was lacking a mission. Now I have a mission to co-create a heartful culture of men by guiding myself first and other men how to authentically vibrate in body, mind, and soul. Because when we could do that as Black men, and I grew up in a predominantly white neighborhood, so I was free of being accepted by the whites. I was like, you're not like the other ones. That's what I used to hear all the time. I was like, is that a compliment? Is it? And then by the black people, they were like, Black population, they were like, man, you I don't know who are you? You like what's this button down business? So I was alone most of my life. So like, to be in this space of learning to let go and stop and to trust was something that's continues on my journey. But that's where everything started to turn that night, man.
Wow. So as you're watching this, I hope you will feel into the stories that we've just shared, because as Black men, we all share the same pains. We all share the same divine discontent. We all are just human beings trying to navigate through this thing called life. But I will assert, I think what has been missing is a space for us as Black men to come to deal with life, to connect with our authentic selves. And so what we've put together is a program, if you will, an organization, if you will, a movement called the Brotherhood of Kings. And this movement is for you. You don't have to be alone anymore. There are men out there who will support you and challenge you to become the best version of yourself. But you've got to be willing to engage. You've got to be willing to engage in this work, in this conversation. Now, this little 1-hour video is kind of hopefully giving you an introduction to this work that we're talking about. But you're going to have to trust yourself, because if you're watching this video, I'm absolutely certain it's no accident.